Christine, how much does it hurt the WNBA when Caitlin Clark is out?
It is devastating to the WNBA.
Now, I know a lot of us were expecting some sort of dip since Caitlin Clark has been out with injury, but I don't think all of us were expecting the entire viewership of the entire WNBA to be down. And this tweet from Christine Brennan really stuck out to me. She said, one player gets injured and more than half the TV audience for the entire league disappears. Has any other athlete ever had that kind of impact on a sport? Golf without Tiger definitely dropped precipitously on occasion.
This is unreal. The moment Caitlin Clark steps off the court, the WNBA crumbles into a financial freefall. The league looks helpless, unable to stop its empire from unraveling. It's as if they've completely forgotten the one simple truth. Clark is the reason they're even relevant. She dragged the league out of obscurity and forced it into the spotlight. And now, with their biggest star sidelined, the WNBA keeps sabotaging itself, ignoring reality while losing millions of dollars every single day.
And the truth is the truth, and the data is there. And what we saw when Caitlin was out the last time, the 5 games that she missed earlier in the season, the WNBA's viewership dropped more than 50%. Not just the Fever, but the entire league.
Let's be real, facts aren't easy to find in this age of hype, hot takes, and social media chaos, especially when we're talking about WNBA sellouts that don't include Caitlin Clark. But the reality check hit hard the moment Clark went down on May 24th with a quad injury. Now, it's a groin setback keeping her off the floor. And truthfully, nobody knows how long she'll be out. Which means we're stuck watching the same painful storyline play out all over again.
That injury jumped to her groin likely because of compensation. But the thing that you have to be careful of is if, say, you try to rush her back from this injury as well, then you're getting into this territory where a very serious injury can happen. That is what the Indiana Fever, that is what Caitlin need to avoid the best that they possibly can. So if it means that Caitlin is out for 3 weeks, if it means that she is out all the way through All-Star, then so be it.
Let's lay it out clearly. National WNBA ratings didn't just dip, they collapsed by a staggering 55%. When Caitlin Clark was on the floor, broadcasts averaged over 1.8 million viewers. Without her, that number free fell to just 847,000. And it gets worse, Indiana Fever games alone suffered a brutal 53% drop. But here's where it turns from bad to outright ridiculous. This isn't just a setback, it's a full-blown crisis for a league that refuses to own up to its colossal mistake.
Clark went down. The WNBA ratings have dropped over 55%.
Yikes.
Across the board.
Hey, guess what, guys?
The league is Caitlin Clark.
The league is Caitlin Clark. She is the WNBA, guys.
Sidelined with a left quad strain May 24th. National TV viewership has plunged since then 55%. Before the injury, the Fever, her team, were averaging 1.81 million viewers, almost 2 million. Since her injury, fewer than 850,000.
While Caitlin Clark was out packing arenas, shattering television records, and generating unheard of revenue, the WNBA was doing the one thing it seems to specialize in: absolutely nothing to safeguard its biggest star. Somehow, it's considered acceptable to let opponents go after the very player responsible for a staggering 26.5% of the league's entire economic impact, all while dismissing it as just basketball plays. And here's the maddening part. This isn't new. The league has already watched revenue and ratings collapse before when its top star went down. Yet somehow, they've learned nothing. It's like watching someone burn their hand on a hot stove, then immediately reaching for it again, pretending they didn't know it was dangerous.
News is alarming for the league, and it's alarming for the league because this is such a crucial year for the WNBA. At the end of this season, the WNBA will go into CBA negotiations. If negotiations go well, then every single player in the WNBA has a much better chance of making so much more in their next contract. And that's one thing when you start thinking about how many people stopped watching when Caitlin Clark got injured. A lot of people stopped watching because they are boycotting the WNBA. They don't want to give viewership to any other teams or any other players, whether they like other players on the team or not, because of how the media and the league itself has handled Caitlin Clark and how they have treated her.
And if you're as blown away by this mess as I am, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because the financial fallout has been brutal. Ticket prices for Indiana Fever games have crashed by an unbelievable 71%, some dropping from $860 to just $250. The average ticket price for Clark's Miss games down from $1,370 to a mere $80. That kind of collapse says everything about who really fuels this league's popularity. Remember when games had to be moved into larger arenas just to keep up with the insane demand for Clark? Now, those same venues are struggling to fill seats. Even the highly hyped Fever versus Chicago Sky rematch, once one of the most anticipated games of the season, saw ticket prices sink from $210 to only $95. That first matchup pulled in a record-shattering 2.25 million viewers. But without Caitlin Clark, it's just another game, and casual fans simply aren't watching.
What's really concerning about this is the fact that we are only a month into the regular season, and Caitlin Clark has already been out with 2 injuries, with the first one being her having to miss some time with a left quad strain. Now, of course, this is concerning because if you're already on your second injury, you don't want to be that player that is always hurt. Cough, cough, Embiid, cough, cough, Anthony Davis. So I really do hope that the Fever really sits her out right now for a while, only because you don't want her to have more long-term injuries and be more prone.
One of the strongest critics of the WNBA's embarrassing mishandling of its biggest star has been veteran journalist Christine Brennan. Her upcoming book on Caitlin Clark and the larger revolution in women's sports is expected to expose the league's failures in full detail. After yet another game where Clark was blatantly targeted by opponents, Brennan didn't hold back, saying, "The WNBA continues to fail to meet the moment. This is what people see when they tune in at record levels." And she's right. The numbers prove it. Clark alone accounts for more than half of the league's entire television audience. Yet somehow, the WNBA still allows her to take unnecessary hits and cheap shots designed only to intimidate the one player carrying their brand. It's the equivalent of a restaurant owner standing by while customers heckle the chef whose cooking is the only reason the place stays in business.
What's really concerning about this is the fact that we are only a month into the regular season, and Caitlin Clark has already been out with 2 injuries, with the first one being her having to miss some time with a left quad strain. Now, of course, this is concerning because if you're already on your second injury, you don't want to be that player that is always hurt. Cough, cough, Embiid, cough, cough, Anthony Davis. So I really do hope that the Fever really sits her out right now for a while, only because you don't want her to have more long-term injuries and be more prone.
At this point, the pattern is almost too obvious to ignore. Instead of focusing on basketball, opponents keep turning games into cheap statement-making opportunities by hacking away at Caitlin Clark. Just look at the numbers. Out of the league's 30 most blatant fouls against her, 5 happened in 2024 alone, with the Chicago Sky accounting for a shocking 80% of them. And here's the trap. If Clark pushes back, she's labeled combative. If she stays quiet, she's dismissed as soft. It's a rigged situation with no way to win, and the league refuses to step in. Meanwhile, the damage isn't just hurting the Fever, it's wrecking the entire WNBA. The league was already staring at $50 million in projected losses this season, but with Clark sidelined, those losses are snowballing. Ratings are tanking, merchandise sales are flatlining, and attendance is crashing back to pre-Clark levels.
Man, bruh. Congratulations to the WNBA. Your ratings are gonna drop by 55 to 60% once again. I believe the WNBA have successfully broken Caitlin Clark.
The saddest part of this disaster? It didn't have to happen. When Caitlin Clark first entered the league, she carried herself with humility, always praising teammates, deflecting attention, and handling nonstop criticism with a level of composure rare for a 2-2-year-old. The WNBA was handed a golden chance to embrace her, protect her, and use her star power to grow the game like never before. Instead, petty jealousy and backstage politics poisoned what should have been a milestone moment for women's basketball.
As big a deal as Tiger was in men's golf, Keith, he did, and when he was gone, it affected the ratings, but nothing like that. And, Michael Jordan being out, maybe a 5 percentage points or something. Nothing like this. You can make a strong case, and I will make that case, and have that there is no one single athlete more important to his or her sport or tour or whatever the circuit is that they play on than Caitlin Clark is to the WNBA.
And the fallout from Clark's injuries goes far deeper than empty seats or lower ratings. Major sponsors who poured millions into the league on the promise of Clark-driven growth are now rethinking those commitments. What this really exposes is a bigger identity crisis inside the WNBA. The league can't decide if it wants to be a serious professional organization or a drama-fueled spectacle for social media clicks. Here's the reality. Real leagues safeguard their stars and protect the integrity of the game. High school drama clubs stir up conflict just to get attention.
I don't even know where to begin, man. I hope Caitlin Clark is okay. I want to know when this injury even happened, bro, because let's be serious here. She has the quad injury. Mind you, Caitlin Clark hadn't missed a game since she was like 19 years old, since she was like 18 in college or something. Now she has a groin injury. We've never seen Caitlin Clark play as bad as she played the last 3 games. Let's just be serious here. She's like 1 for 20-something on threes in the last 3. We've never seen her shoot the ball this way. I'll say that. Has she been hurt and playing through?
The comparison to other pro leagues couldn't be more obvious or more embarrassing. Imagine if the NBA let opponents spend months using cheap shots to go after LeBron James, all while brushing it off as just part of the game. That would never fly. The league would shut it down instantly, handing out suspensions before the dust even settled. But the WNBA? They seem willing to let this destructive pattern play out, almost as if they believe that any attention, even negative attention, is good for business. And now the consequences are spilling over. Fans are walking away from games, not because they don't love basketball, but because they no longer believe the competition is fair. When your own supporters openly say they won't watch without your biggest star because they can't trust the officiating, you're dealing with something far bigger than slumping ratings or lost revenue. You're facing a full-blown credibility crisis.
I admire about Caitlin. She's a warrior. She's tough. You hear me? Bruh, you just don't see players. You don't see female basketball players like her. I'm sorry. I done seen a lot of female basketball players, like I said.
The WNBA has had countless chances to course correct, but each time, they've blown it, making the situation even worse. Every foul and every cheap shot against Caitlin Clark should have been a glaring warning sign, pushing the league to establish firm standards for safety and fair play. Instead, we get the same recycled excuses, just basketball plays or letting players play. The irony? The very outcome the league should have been. Working hardest to prevent Clark's injury has made her value to the business impossible to ignore. A 55% collapse in viewership isn't some minor blip, it's a full-scale crisis. And still, there's no real sign the WNBA has learned anything. Officials keep leaning on empty phrases like competitive balance and physical play as if cheap shots are somehow vital to the sport. Meanwhile, truly dangerous hits on Clark get brushed aside, while routine plays involving her are treated like major incidents.
Clean up. I believe the physicality and all this hacking and fouling that goes on, she getting blindsided by Marina Mabry. I think all of this stuff is having a wear and tear and an impact. And all you guys are doing are hurting yourselves, because the numbers are going to drop and drop and drop. And trust me, when it's time for that collective bargaining agreement, they are going to point to this and say, well, how can we give you guys all this money? What happens if she gets hurt?
Let's be honest, there's no complicated solution here. The WNBA has to make some hard decisions about what kind of league it actually wants to be. If they want the respect that comes with being a true professional organization, then it's time to start acting like one. That means creating clear rules around player safety and enforcing them without exceptions. The focus should be on the game itself, not endless drama designed to stir up clicks. And most importantly, the league has to protect its biggest stars, the ones filling arenas, driving ratings, and keeping the entire operation alive. Allowing constant targeting and trolling does nothing but cheapen the sport and drag it back into chaos. The numbers speak for themselves. Since Clark's absence, average viewership has plunged to just 555,000, a drop below last year's 670,000 mark. That's not just a stat, it's a brutal reminder of exactly what the WNBA looked like before Clark arrived. Half-empty arenas and games so irrelevant that only the diehards even bothered to watch. If the league doesn't change course now, that's exactly where they're headed again.
Yeah, because of the way they play the game, because I love the WNBA, I love the way they play the game. But we really watch it because Caitlin Clark and everybody watching. Now listen, if I keep bumping her, knocking her down, might get her a concussion, you might hurt her for real. For 2 weeks, she was done with like a hamstring. She was down. 55% of the viewership was down. She comes back the next game, it's about 3 million viewers. Now let me tell you something. Growing up in the hood, they teach you this. Always protect the money. Y'all keep hurting her and all that. She going for a year or two. Ain't nobody gonna watch it. If nobody watches, how y'all gonna make and generate money?
What makes this whole situation so frustrating is that it never had to end up like this. The WNBA had the perfect chance to use Caitlin Clark's massive popularity as the foundation for real, lasting growth. If they had protected and promoted her properly, they could have built stability for the future. Instead, they've created a fragile house of cards that collapses the moment their biggest star steps off the floor. And so the cycle continues. Short bursts of hype followed by steep drop-offs where one player's presence or absence dictates whether anyone is paying attention at all. Until the league figures out how to truly safeguard and spotlight the athletes who actually move the needle, nothing will change. So here's the real question. Will the WNBA finally learn to protect its most valuable asset, or will they keep repeating the same mistakes until every opportunity Caitlin Clark brought them is wasted? Based on what we've seen so far, it's hard to believe the league is suddenly about to wise up.